That's what we do.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
I told y'all.
Shout out to Bird B.
Pay attention.
Hurricane Carter has defeated the wonder.
One thing I could do, and the only thing, was box.
Can you believe that black punk? He thinks he's champion of the world.
We're looking for two Negroes in a white car.
Any two will do.
Look carefully, sir. Are these the two men who shot you?
He said no.
Take another look, sir.
Reuben Carter, you are sentenced to be imprisoned for the remainder of your natural life.
I'm innocent. I've committed no crime. Crime's been committed.
What's going on, YouTube? We back in the Low Key Cave, Keyshawn Nam's YouTube page, aka Mr. Low Key, and we back with another movie review. This time we're doing a retro review. Shout out Black History Month. The Hurricane, starring Denzel Washington, and this is based off in a true story of an actual boxer named Reuben the Hurricane Carter, man. This is definitely one of the movies I dread watching, man. I hadn't watched this in a very long time, man. When I first watched this, just the impact of this story, not even knowing about this story, not even knowing about this actual person as far as Reuben Carter, and everything he had to go through, man. Definitely shows just the appreciation you gotta have, not only for life, but just in general, what we have in today's times. Even though it's so much shit still going on, dealing with just overall black people and cops in general, still dealing with not really getting the true justice that we deserve in these type of situations. But especially back then, in those times, we're talking about the 70s and the 80s, definitely way worse when dealing with these type of situations. But when it came to Reuben Hurricane Carter, he was a very profound middleweight boxer in the mid-70s, but he ended up getting convicted of a triple murder along with somebody else named John Artis, and ended up having to do life. 3 life terms, if I'm not mistaken. He did eventually get out, but he almost did 20 years in prison for a wrongful conviction, being innocent and doing almost 20 years in prison. Just imagine. Just think about that for a moment. But just think about, just outside of even him and his story, just black people in period in that time, and even sometimes dealing with today's actions and being wrongfully convicted because of your skin color and being in prison for that amount of time. Remember the story of the Central Park 5, the black little boys that got convicted, and the one little boy, the 16 years old, that got tried as an adult, being sent to Rikers Island, man. Yes, but these stories are important to be told because it's the fact that it is sad, but it's also inspirational because certain black people especially, have these moments where we want to complain about certain situations. Then you see what this man went through and how inspirational it was for somebody who decided to not give up and to keep on fighting. That's definitely inspirational. But going into this movie, man, Reuben Carter pretty much just started off with his younger years, and the fact that him being convicted at a younger age as a little boy, and the fact that it was for him defending himself against a pedophile and him trying to help his friends. But he ends up coming across this one particular cop that just pretty much makes his life a living hell from the time that he's a child to the time that he's an old man. This cop just stayed on his ass, and he would not leave him alone no matter what. And that's one thing I will say as far as Carter, and I don't know what situation he had going on in New Jersey, Patterson at the time, but I would have left. Especially when the situation happened where he escaped at a younger age and he ended up going to the Army, and when he got out the Army, he came back to Patterson. I'm being honest, man, I would have left, because even after that situation where the cop pretty much finds him after he get back from the Army, because he did escape and he said, "You still owe me time." And even after him serving that time and he gets out and him becoming a boxer, I would have left, because it's obvious this cop has a goddamn vendetta against him, man, and he would not leave him alone, man. But once again, just the things he had to go through just as a child, what he had to go through as a child, and then him leading up into an adult and still going through these similar things because of this one particular cop. And even this story is definitely giving you that hindsight, and I don't care how big you are, I don't care how popular you become, I don't care how much money you got. If you are black, you're going to be treated as that, especially in these times. They don't give a fuck who you are. I'm not black, I'm OJ. Y'all know the song. But this story definitely put emphasis on that because he was a profound boxer. Even the night he was pulled over by the cops, they recognize, they know who he is, and that whole situation didn't, none of that shit matter. When you were black, you were going to be treated as such. But just seeing the situation he has to go through and so much more, it's the fact that he pretty much put into a predicament of being like, I got to fight my life. This is my life. My life is a fight. So that kind of leads to him in becoming a boxer and pretty much putting that anger out of everything he had to go through because majority of his life has been spent in prison or being in jail. So going into the situation of him pretty much getting into the conviction because the night he's pretty much coming off a fight that he ends up losing by a crazy ass decision, him fighting a white boxer and he pretty much knowing that he won, but he ends up getting cheated or whatever. It's a situation he gets into with the young man with him because the young man is just a guy that was just going to drive him home because he had a couple of drinks as far as the hurricane. But I remember him the way he's explaining it in the book, which we're going to get to, and the fact that if that young man wouldn't have drove him home, and the fact that just him driving him, and the fact that they got this animosity towards the hurricane, and he had to be a part of that situation and end up doing time with him. But the fact is that man still stood behind him. He didn't even, I think they tried to get him to pretty much tell on the hurricane as far as Ruben. They tried to get him to say, yo, it was just him. He was the one that did the killings or whatever, and he never did that. And he knew both of those people was innocent, and he knew he didn't want to go to jail, of course not. But the fact that they end up convicting both of them of 3 life terms, man, this is definitely a role I feel like Denzel Washington should have got an Oscar for, man. Because outside of just his performance as even playing a boxer, when he locked up in prison and he got this whole thing where he knows he's innocent, so he's not going to go out by the traditional rules of being in prison. So when he gets there, they throw him in the hole because he's not following the basic rules. And we got this scene where he pretty much going into this whole thing with solitary confinement, and they kind of been talking about this over the years as far as prison and just solitary confinement and the way it drives people crazy pretty much because you're isolated from nobody and it's just you. And it's showing how in-depth Denzel went with this acting. But not only that, it's showing you Reuben Carter and the things he had to go through. And pretty much him talking to himself because he just been in there so long. He been in there 90 days, man. And you seen the fact that the hair growing on him, the fact that he's still in the same clothes that he got arrested in that night. He's sitting in his own filth, you know what I'm saying? That shit is just crazy to look at and watch, but knowing what that man had to go through because of what he believed in, that was the thing. The fact that he was like, I don't care what y'all do to me. I don't care I know I'm innocent, so I'm not going to let y'all treat me as a prisoner or somebody who is guilty of a crime that they didn't commit. But he does end up coming across one guard. Hey, this particular guard, too, played in the Shawshank Redemption, and he was, goddamn, one of the worst of the worst. He was a villain. And the fact that he playing a guard in this, and he one of the best guards in here, I was just waiting. I was like, when I first watched this anyway, I was like, oh, he going to be a damn asshole, man. He going to be on some bullshit. And if y'all watch the movie, y'all know the guard I'm talking about as far as the correctional officer or whatever. But he does come across this one correctional officer that pretty much works with him. Doesn't make him wear the traditional prison uniform, even the numbers. But it's really what Reuben Carter goes into as far as why he's locked up. He says he heavily educates himself. He doesn't eat the same prison food. He doesn't work in their showers because, once again, he's isolating himself from the traditional rules of a prison because he is not guilty. And he's not going to be looked at as guilty. He's not going to put himself in the, based on that mind state of being guilty. So he pretty much does everything in his power to try to prove his innocence, which time after time, he pretty much getting denied appeals because, once again, it's people that was behind him being convicted, including this one cop. So we get to this point of this young man named Israel Martin coming across his book because while he's incarcerated throughout this time, he does end up writing this book. And this young man named Israel Martin, as far as this young boy, ends up coming across this book and he ends up reading it and getting inspired behind it because the young man has a story on his own because he ends up moving in with these Canadians to pretty much get his education together because his parents have their situation that they dealing with. So he's able to move in with these Canadians and they end up helping him getting his education. But when he come across this book, it inspires him to pretty much at first just want to talk to him and want to visit him. But once he starts to get engaged with Reuben Carter, it pretty much becomes a point where he wants to fight for his freedom, knowing that he is innocent. This was, man, probably some of the I ain't gonna say best moments because once again, it's that dread because when I first watched this, I didn't know if he had got out or not. So I was like, man, they ain't not gonna let him out. This is gonna be some bullshit, man. They gonna do something, but it's the effort that these people go through, especially Israel Martin, the relationship and bond that they build with the Hurricane, because it gets to a point where it seems like he is giving up, because he even tells his wife at one point to not come back up here, it's over, after he keep losing these appeals, and he tell her, so he's losing hope. But once he gets into this relationship with this young man and this young man's providers, or where pretty much these people that's helping him out with his education or whatever, it's pretty much that light he needs to keep him going, to keep him fighting for his freedom. Because it's not easy, because once they get engaged, they got this whole thing with the people on the outside trying to threaten him. The cop ends up coming back into the picture, that the one that convicted him from the time that he was a kid to the time that he's an adult. It's back in the picture because once again, it's the whole thing with this truth coming out. People being behind the scenes that pretty much put this together. The witnesses that they brung in to pretty much testify, that knowing that they was lying, but knowing that they was bribed or whatever, who have to take back their testimonies, whatever. So it becomes a lot, but they end up saying that, nah, we ain't scared and we gonna stay. Because it comes to a situation where they end up moving down there to New Jersey because they stay in Canada to just show him that we gonna stay to the end through this, to see you walk out those doors, man. So there was definitely some good moments, man. Outside of that, though, it just really comes down to the whole situation with the court and the trial and what they're going to do, because it comes to a point where certain evidence where they want to use, but if this judge don't allow this evidence, they can't use this if they move forward in the trial, and it just disappears. It never be used again, but the judge ends up allowing it. So he does end up getting his freedom, man. It's a very intense moment. Like I said, if you watch the movie for the first time, you don't know the story, it's like, oh my gosh, man. It's one of them court scenes. Remember A Time to Kill? Man. But knowing that this was a true story, and like I said, I hadn't seen the real story, so I didn't know he had actually got out. Definitely inspiring, man, and just seeing his reaction and Denzel Washington's performance. This is definitely one he should have won outside of Training Day. And I know he did. I know he won one for supporting acting in Glory, and I think he won for another one, but he absolutely should have won one for The Hurricane, man. That performance, and like I said, in the jail scenes, a lot of those times, and that emotion behind him and the passion and what he going through, and you see like that hurt that he going through in his eyes, and pretty much putting himself in the place that Reuben Carter in as far as the actual guy and what he was going through. I'm telling you, Denzel definitely should have won an award for this. But even with supporting cast, man, this was a good movie. A lot of good characters in here, and the hatred you got for this cop, boy, you want to see his ass. Ooh, I want to see something, man, I'm telling you. But this is definitely a good movie, man. If you haven't seen this movie, you definitely should watch it. I feel like sometimes, I feel like this kind of go under the radar when you talk about like Denzel performances. A lot of people talk about Malcolm X, of course, Glory, and Training Day, of course. Out of all of them, of course, it's Training Day. But this is definitely a good one you should check out. Other than that, man, I wanted to do this for Black History Month. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that notification bell, let you know when I upload new videos. Other than that, we out.